interesting as I listened to the group. So we have FDA Informed, which is what I was going to talk about, but I think which is a program that is bringing together data from external sources and internal sources to deliver better health outcomes in a number of areas. But rather than talk about it, I think it's really interesting here is how do you actually kind of scale up and do this work, right? And so the approach that we've been taking at HHS is we identify a problem and we hire someone to help us solve it at a very low cost, right? And maybe that's a small business, and then we move to another company. We bring in another company that can maybe run multiple development teams at one time, because as Greg keeps pointing out, you have to develop a user interface that the workforce is going to be comfortable with.
Got to integrate it,
So they can create more. And then what we realized is that then you have to go to a larger integrator with maybe a technology platform that can kind of service you at an enterprise level. And so the approach that we've taken to do this at a low cost and kind of build in change to the workforce is start by solving a problem for a couple $100,000, bring in somebody that can run multiple development teams, that can create a UI that our workforce will be comfortable with and help us generate buy-in through human-centered design, and then go to market where we're looking to an integrator and a technology provider to partner together. The technology provider saying, look, this is a part of our R&D investment. The integrator saying, look, we can use this to sell capabilities to other government agencies, both domestically and around the world. And I think that's the way that you actually kind of scale and drive change in these organizations and in our organizations, and actually control for risk. And as I listen to the conversation around the table, I think as important as it is to talk about what we're doing with machine learning and artificial intelligence, it's important to talk about how you're actually driving that change. Because if we went to market with a large technology provider and an integrator to actually do the work, the change would be so big that it would be hard to drive in a federated environment like we work in.
Sure.
Right? So we've been taking it in bite-sized pieces, and I think that's something that needs to be a part of this conversation, both today and in the future.
Right, and sort of that whole federation of activity, not only do the agency, most of these agencies operate in a federated way, you need to implement these types of capabilities in a federated way.
And you have to go and you have to look across a series of, and I hate to use the word silos, but you have to look across a series of organizations, and you have to go horizontal across them, and you have to modernize the tech stack while delivering on your legacy operations.
Right.
And that's a tough balancing act if you don't have a strategy to actually execute it. And I think that's a really good point. So, one of the challenges we ran into when we were building our recurrent neural network is that we're talking about doing a series of things, and you get to a point where whatever you did before no longer matters, right? So you have to forget what has occurred before and make a decision. It's like you're walking down a hill and you come to a cliff and you no longer can take a step. You either have to slide down or walk around. So from a storage perspective, memory has to be stored differently. Transactional memory, long-term memory, and memory associated with motor skills like RPA have to be stored in different locations. So the approach that we've taken is go really light on infrastructure and just kind of show what our boundary will be. Really heavy on user interface. Now we can, and then some tests. I can prove return on investment, and then I can start to think about how to implement a storage strategy that's going to allow me to be flexible long-term to actually deliver the return on investment that I think I can capture. And I think the piece on storage it's kind of one of the challenges that we kind of bumped into, and I'm glad we didn't go and build the infrastructure first. And I'm not that old, but I think that historically government agencies have focused on building out like a large infrastructure first, and they've limited all their flexibility downstream.
And I think that's